Welcome to Quadratics Part 3. By the end of this PowerPoint video, we will be able to solve problems that look like this. 1, 2, and 3. Now we know from our last video, these are technically quadratic equations because each one has x squared, x squared, x squared. So we automatically know it's quadratic. But ask yourself, how is this different than the equations from Part 2? All of these equations have x squared and regular x squared and regular x squared and regular x. So we will not be using square roots for these problems. You can only use square root to solve if it's only x squared and there's no regular x in the equation there. So let's think about how do we go about solving a quadratic equation that looks like this. And we're going to establish our thinking with those area models. If I ask you to find the area here, we know that if we're given a square or rectangle, we just multiply the length times the width. 10 times 6 is 60. There's our area. Now factoring is going from our answer and going back to the sides. So it's like I give you 60 as the area. And if you're asked to factor something in quadratics, I want to know the side. 10 times 6 gave me that 60. So we're about to start going in reverse. So let's imagine if this was the problem and I wanted you to say, hey, find the area. Well, we know that we're still going to go length times width. Length times width. I see there's nothing in the parentheses, so I'm going to use the nice area model to help me out. There we go. So I'm going to set this up to multiply with our area model. I know that x times x is x squared. Don't forget that squared. 3 times x is 3x. 3 times 4 is 12. X times 4 is 4x. And remember, like terms have to be the same variable and same exponent. That's the only x squared out there, so that's part of our answer. 3x plus 4x is 7x. And then that 12 is the only regular number. So this would be the area of that rectangle, all right? And what our equation solving is about to do is we're gonna start with the answer, and you guys are going to tell me the sides that multiplied to get to that answer. Let's solve number 1 from our 3 practice problems over here. X squared plus 8x plus 15 equals 0. The first thing to note is you are not ready to solve a quadratic until one side is equal to 0. This side is equal to 0, so I know I'm ready to continue, okay? Now, like I said, this is like I gave you the area of a square, and we're trying to find the two sides that would multiply to this answer, okay? Now, in order to set up our thinking, we are going to use the area models to try and work backwards here. Now we know that top corner is where we always have gotten our little x squared, and we know our 15, our regular number, is always going to go in the bottom right. So we always know we can grab our x squared to the top left, our regular number to the bottom right, and usually these are the like terms that will combine to be 8x, but I don't know how to split that up yet. So we have a little puzzle to think about, okay? We are going to ask ourselves what multiplies to 15, that last number, and adds up to 8, the number with x. If you notice, these are just like the puzzles we were doing to start the year. What will multiply to the top number, to that 15, and what is going to add or subtract to that bottom number? Well, I know 5 times 3 is 15. 5 plus 3 is 8. So I know that this is going to become 5x and 3x. That's where we got that 8x from. 5x plus 3x gave us that 8x. So now we're starting to continue to work backwards. Now we split it up. Now we actually need to know what are those 4 sides. Well, let's start with up here. What's the only way to get x squared? X times x. Now, x times what gives us 5x? Oh, 5 times x gives us 5x. And let's go down here. 5 times what gives us 3? 5 times 3 gives us that 15. And now that works out as well. X plus 3, x times 3 is 3x. And so I have my original sides, and you're not done until we write it like this. And that is all still technically equal to 0. The very last step is to create two little problems here. Set each parentheses equal to that 0 and solve. Only step there would be subtracting. Only step there would be subtracting. Try number 2. Now remember, our cardinal rule when it comes to quadratics, and I see x squared and regular x, is I need one side equal to 0. You must before we continue, and I see that's not true right now. I have a 30 over here, so we need that 30 to go party with the other. That's a positive 30, so we're going to subtract it from each side. Now, is there a like term for that negative 30? I see x squared and regular x. I don't see another number from it. So we're just going to be able to write x squared minus 1x minus 30 equals 30 minus 30 is 0. Now we have that one side equal to 0. Now we can continue trying to factor. Okay, so we're going to set up our area model. Our x squared is always in our top left. Our regular number, including the sign, will go in our bottom. Now we have to figure out how do we split up that negative 1x into these two boxes. And that's where we're going to set up our little diamond puzzle. What is going to multiply to the last number? What will multiply to the last number? And what is going to add or subtract to that number with x? That's number with x. So what multiplies to negative 30 and adds or subtract to negative 1? If you're having trouble, start breaking down how to multiply to 30. 30 times 1, but I can't get a negative 1 if I subtract those. 15 times 2 gets me to a 30, but I can't subtract those in any way and get negative 1. 5 times 6. Oh, that one could work. If I use 5 times 6, right now it's just positive 30. If I subtract these, well, if I make that negative a 6, 5 times negative 6 is negative 30. 5 minus 6 is negative 1. So I know this needs to be my 5x and negative 6x. Just don't forget, guys, the 5 and the 6x are your like terms here that will combine to that negative 1x. And now we can go backwards and find what multiplied to get there. The only way to get x squared is x times x. Then here, x times what is 5x, just a good old 5. Down here, what times x is negative 6x, just good old negative 6 gets us there. And then that just worked out, didn't it? 5 times negative 6 is negative 30. Make sure you check all of your multiplication, because now we know we have our correct answer. And we have our factors. And now we need to get our solution. You set each parentheses equal to 0 and solve. So I notice I have x squared and I see a couple regular x's. So I know before I do anything, one side needs to equal 0. One side must equal 0 if we have x squared and x for our quadratic equation. So over here, I'm going to need to subtract that 2x. And I'm going to line up my like terms. If that's a regular x, that will go with my regular x over here. Then I will add the 5, that's the regular number, So I'll line that up with the regular number over here. Nothing's happening to x squared. Negative 6x minus 2x goes down to negative 8x. 7 plus 5 is positive 12 equals 2 minus 2x is 0. Negative 5 plus 5 is 0. So now I'm ready to go. I'm going to drop in my x squared up here, my regular number down here. Now we need to figure out how are we going to split up that negative 8x. We will use the diamond puzzle to help us. So we'll ask ourselves, what will multiply to the 12, but add or subtract to that negative 8? Let's see, 1 times 12 gets me to 12, but that doesn't add or subtract to 8. 2 times 6 is 12, and I think I can use that 2 and 6 to get an 8. So 2 times 6 is 12, but not 2 plus 6 is positive 8. So if I make that negative, negative 2 times 6 is negative 12, so that doesn't work. So what if I make both of these negative? Negative 2 times negative 6 is positive 12. Negative 2 minus 6 is negative 8. So I found it. Negative 2x and negative 6x. Because remember, guys, your answers to the diamond puzzle are splitting up that negative 8x. So don't forget to put those x's with your diamond puzzle answers. Now let's get our 4 sides. The only way to get x squared is x times x. X times negative 2 is negative 2x. X times negative 6 is negative 6x. And this worked out. Negative 2 times negative 6 is positive 12. So I know my factors are x minus 6 times x minus 2 equals 0. And I set up my little equations. Each one only needs one step. And this is factoring quadratics.